So picture this. It's December 8th, 2025, and the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown announces its newest member. And almost instantly, the entire baseball world just splits right in two, kicking off one of the biggest arguments we've seen in a long, long time. On one side, you had total celebration. For years, this player's fans have been saying he was one of the most underrated guys of his era. And for them, this felt like vindication. Finally, he got his due. But then there was the other side, a whole lot of skepticism, maybe even a little bit of sarcasm. I mean, this comment just says it all, right? The feeling that the Hall might be lowering its standards, letting in someone who was great, sure, but a legend? So what is all the fuss about? Well, the man in the middle of this whole firestorm is second baseman Jeff Kent. And the big question isn't just whether he belongs in the Hall of Fame. It's how he got in, and what his election really tells us about what the Hall of Fame even is anymore. See, here's what makes this so wild. For a full decade, the baseball writers, the people who vote on this stuff every year, looked at Jeff Kent's career, and they never came close to putting him in. He topped out at around 46% of the vote. You need 75%. That's not even in the same ballpark. So for him to suddenly get the call, yeah, it was a pretty big shock. So you're probably asking, how does a player the writers passed on for 10 straight years end up in Cooperstown? Well, let's look at the argument for Jeff Kent. And really, it all comes down to one thing. The man could hit. This number. This is the whole argument in a nutshell. 351. That is how many home runs Jeff Kent hit while playing second base. Let that sink in. No other second baseman in the entire history of baseball has ever hit more. That's not an opinion, that's a record. It's a huge deal. And the rest of the resume is pretty darn solid too. I mean, look at the hardware. A National League MVP award back in 2000, 5 times an All-Star, 4 Silver Sluggers, which means he was voted the best hitter at his position 4 different times. And the career numbers, almost 380 homers and over 1,500 RBIs. You look at that on paper and you think, yeah, okay, that's a Hall of Famer. But, it's never that simple, right? Let's flip the coin and look at the other side. Why did so many people look at those numbers and still say, nope, not good enough? Okay, for a lot of the analytics folks, it comes down to something like this. There's a stat called wins above replacement, or WAR, and it tries to measure a player's total value, hitting, defense, base running, all of it. Kent's number is 55.4. Now, look at Whitaker, another second baseman from a similar era who is not in the Hall of Fame. His WAR is 75.1. That is a massive difference, and it gets to the heart of the debate. Was Kent's amazing hitting enough to make up for, well, everything else? And really, the case against him boils down to these 3 things. First, his defense, it was not good. Most people would say he was a liability with a glove. Second, as we just saw, that WAR number puts him in a category with a ton of guys who aren't in the Hall. And third, his personality. He had a reputation for being a pretty prickly guy in the clubhouse and with the media, which, let's be honest, probably didn't help his case with the voters. So if the writers kept saying no year after year, how is Jeff Kent a Hall of Famer? Well, the answer lies in a special committee, kind of like a secret backdoor to Cooperstown. It's called the Contemporary Baseball Era Committee. The best way to think about it is like an appeals court for baseball greats. It's the small group of 16 people, Hall of Fame players, big-time executives, historians, and their job is to take a second look at guys the writers might have missed. And the process is pretty simple. First, you have to go through all 10 years on the writer's ballot and not get in. Then your name gets put on this special committee ballot. And from there, all you have to do is get 12 of those 16 people to vote for you. That's it. And boy, did Jeff Kent get the votes. He didn't just barely get in, he cruised in. He got 14 out of 16 votes, way more than the 12 he needed. So while you and I and all the fans might be arguing about it, this small, powerful group of insiders, they were clearly convinced. But here's where the story gets really complicated. Because Jeff Kent getting into the Hall of Fame isn't just about Jeff Kent. His plaque forces us to look right at the biggest, ugliest shadow hanging over the sport. Because the incredible irony, the thing that makes this whole situation so explosive, isn't really about Kent's stats. It's about who was standing next to him in the dugout during his best years in San Francisco. And there it is, the paradox that makes this whole debate so fascinating. Jeff Kent is in the Hall of Fame. His teammate, Barry Bonds, the guy who holds the all-time home run record, maybe the greatest hitter to ever pick up a bat, is out. And we all know why. Bonds has been kept out because of his deep connections to the steroid era. And things just got a lot tougher for guys from that era. On the very same ballot that put Kenton, Bonds, Roger Clemens, and Gary Sheffield got almost no support. And because of a brand new rule, getting so few votes means they're now kicked off the ballot. They can't even be considered again until 2031 at the earliest. A lot of people see this as the Hall's way of just trying to make the whole steroid problem go away. So in the end, this whole argument over Jeff Kent makes us ask a much bigger question. It's not just about one guy's home run total. It's about what we want the Hall of Fame to be. What is its purpose? I absolutely love this comment because it just hits the nail on the head. The Hall of Fame isn't some perfect, objective thing. It's not math. It's a museum built on opinions, on stories, and on arguments. It's a conversation that has been going on for generations, and it's never, ever going to end. Which brings us to this final question. The Hall of Fame says its job is to tell the story of baseball. But how can you tell the complete story of the game when some of its most important characters, the guys who defined entire eras like Barry Bonds or Pete Rose, are nowhere to be found? Jeff Kent's election doesn't answer that question. It just makes it a whole lot louder.